Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to this first event of our HealthTech series for Nordic-based tech companies. My name is Anna Birkland. I work for the British Embassy in Oslo, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to this series hosted by the British Embassy to Norway, Finland and Sweden, together with the Department of International Trade and our Nordic-based cluster partners. We have Nordic, Norway HealthTech, we have the Norwegian Smart Care Cluster, we have Olo Health, we have SweCare, we have the Salzgitter Science Park, and we have the Nordic HealthTech community. Loads of partners and loads of eager participants to facilitate this series for you. So today we will go over the first event, covering, as the headline is saying, the route to the UK market. And we want to cover sort of the key steps of how to take your business to the UK. Today, we will hear from our health tech specialist at DIT, the AHSN and PwC. Together, we will cover then some of the key stakeholders, some of the key things that you need to know in order to be aware of making your go-to-market strategy, and also covering a little bit on the access to finance. And so overall, the role of the embassy and the reason why we put this event series together is really to support the links between the UK market and the Nordics. And we want to facilitate this in terms of giving you the information you need, the support you might need, leverage our connections, and kind of be your advisors in this process. And with that, this is the first event. I also want to briefly touch upon what's coming up and the reasons why we hope to engage you the whole way. Our second part will be more of a workshop and a pitching event. This will be facilitated again by us and our partners, and we have invited some good judges for this event. The idea again is to make sure that we facilitate a workshop event where companies, if they want to, can pitch and give a little bit introduction about their go-to-market strategy for the UK. The judges will then be giving you feedback on that. And this will be an event relevant to all participants, even the ones who's not actually having the opportunity to pitch, because there's always something that we could learn from this type of feedback. And some of the judges is Lish Ashall-Payne from Orca. We have Tony Young from the NHS. We have Nick Allen from the Innovation Procurement Hub up in Manchester. And we will have David from Oyster Capital. So we hope that this will be a good second event. This will happen end of November. Our third event, which I hope also would spark some interest, is we would like to bring a delegation of Nordic companies to London for a 2-day event. This is planned to happen in March. So fingers crossed that we could keep our planning for that. And all the details and all of this will come on this event webpage, so stay tuned. We want to update you as much as possible. And I would like to just say, in the meantime, we will be here to help and here to assist. Myself covering the Norway market. I have my colleague Mari in Finland and Jacqueline in Sweden. And all of our details are linked on our event page. So lots of information coming your way this morning, but we will update you as we go along, and stay tuned for our website as well. With that, I think I'd like to kick off today's event, which we will start off with having our health tech specialist, Hsn Choudhury, talking to you a little bit about some of the key steps to take into the UK market. So over to you, Hsn, and again, welcome all. I hope you enjoyed this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's a real pleasure to be here. In my 20 minutes or so, I'd like to cover some of the history of what we've been doing, so that you know how to position yourself when you're approaching the UK market. And I do think a lot of what I'm going to be talking about feels like the kind of thing that other countries around the world are looking at and thinking perhaps they should be going in the same direction. So the first is that a couple of years ago, we produced what we call the Nhs Long-Term Plan. It was our 10-year strategy. And if you look at the schematic, you'll see that there's 7 steps. But the key to this is an acknowledgement that the National Health Service, the NHS, will not survive, is not sustainable unless there's radical change. The radical change has to be in how we organize the NHS, but also how we have to encourage citizens to prevent themselves from getting ill, that they have to look after their own self-care. And if we can't do that, if we can't prove that citizens can look after themselves and we only react, then the system will fall apart. There's just too much demand. Especially since, if you look at number 4 on the schematic, we're under severe workforce pressures. There aren't enough people to care for those who need help. And in fact, actually worldwide, that's a global issue. So there is something that we need to do with technology, point 5, where we're using technology in order to lift the burden off of the workforce, to do more with less, and to also support patients look after themselves. There is also something that I'll come to about reconfiguring the way that we organize the health system. So I'll just move to the next slide. So there's a lot of different organizations, and it can be very confusing. If you're coming into the UK market for the very first time, you can look at just the organizations I've put here, there's many more, and wonder what do they all do and how do they all touch. Very briefly, I'll mention to the top right, you've got NHS Digital. So they operate only in England. So of the 4 constituent parts of the United Kingdom, they only look after England, and they look after live systems. So they're not the people who deal with policy and strategy. Those are the people on the top left, NHSX. And NHSX commissions work from NHS Digital. You have in the middle row, you have Health Data Research UK, who are industrializing the data that we have available. Alan Turing Institute, which is our National Institute for Data Science, for AI, and lots of other wonderful organizations there. But let me focus for a second on NHSX. And these are the 5 missions that NHSX have explicitly stated. And using these 5 missions will help any company coming to the UK understand where they need to focus. Is it about the first one, reducing the burden on the workforce, releasing time to care? Is it about number 2, giving people the tools to access their own information so they can access their own services directly? Number 3, ensuring people have their information safely accessible, interoperable, so that you can see it whenever you need to see it, sharing. Number 4, safety, and number 5, productivity. So NHSX have produced a series of reports. They have an AI lab, and the AI lab have made sure that they have really focused on how do we get not just the supplier side, but the buyer side right. So on the left-hand side, you'll see an AI how to get it right report, which is about how you put policy into practice. And on the right-hand side, importantly, a buyer's guide. So lots of people were saying, we understand that AI is valuable, but how do we make a good decision about procuring it? So that was helping both sides of the equation. And NHSX, they don't hold all of the frameworks, but they are quite a few frameworks that you go to NHSX for. For example, there's a clinical communications procurement framework. And there's also the Spark dynamic purchasing system for remote monitoring. If you go to NHSX's website, you'll see they've made that very easy to see. And the dynamic purchasing system is very much around how do we have organizations put up very quickly that you can call off. So getting onto one of these procurement frameworks is not a guarantee of business, but it does 2 things. It helps make sure that the system knows that you are credible, because in order to get onto the framework, you must have ticked a lot of the boxes. And it also means that you understand what is expected. And there's lots of conversation about what's expected from companies in tech. And I'll come to that in a second. This is something that I want to focus on for a moment. This is our AI in Health and Care Award. And it's run by a few organizations. You see the logos, the Accelerated Access Collaborative, the National Institute for Health Research, and NHSX, and its AI lab. And they've put together a huge amount of money, 140 million that's going to be spread over 3 years, sorry. And these organizations that win these awards are at 4 levels. Those who are early, all the way up to stage 4, who are ready for deployment. And if you win one of these AI awards, you get spread and adoption throughout the UK. So we're really making a big effort to make sure that we adopt the right technologies. I won't touch too much on things like the Digital Health Technologies Framework, evidence standards. I'll let Steven go into those. But the reason I mention them is because they all connect into what we first of all had, the Code of Conduct, which has now been upgraded into the Guide to Good Practice, and then into the DTAC, the Digital Technology Assessment Criteria, a baseline criteria. And what we're trying to do is trying to put all of these things so that they merge. So you're not having to do lots of different things. By getting yourself a Digital Technology Assessment Criteria, DTAC assessment, it means that you have met the bare minimum for digital technology, for clinical safety, for usability. And if you can meet the standard for DTAC, that means eventually, maybe about a year's time perhaps, you will end up being procured. But you can imagine in a year's time, if you don't have the DTAC, and the DTAC is fed by other things, then we will say to you, we don't want to procure you. So it's important that you see there's lots of things happening in the system trying to gather around expectations. And that led us to this, what good looks like, a recent framework for digital transformation. We recently had somebody appointed as our director for transformation at NHS England, actually, Tim Ferriss. And his argument has long been that we need a North Star. We need people, wherever they are, doing any digital transformation to make sure that they're aiming at the same things. So someone isn't doing digital transformation one way in one place and different in another. And these 7, if you start from, if you like, the top, the 12 o'clock of that schematic, organizations and programs and projects need to be well led. We need to ensure smart foundations, so cloud, agile, interoperable, safe practice, like with anything in healthcare. We need to support people. That includes our own people. We need to improve care. We need to focus on populations. And importantly, right at the center, empower citizens. So you can see all of these goals, all of these things are moving towards the same convergence. What we're trying not to do is do digital in different ways in different places. And we're asking suppliers as they come into the system to see what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is make sure citizens are our focus, populations are a focus. And talking about populations means we now need to talk about the integrated care systems. So for the remainder of my time, I'd like to focus on this. As I mentioned in the NHS Long-Term Plan, our discussion was how do we change the way we did things? So there was a real problem. And if you see, this is actually showing you a screenshot from the website. In the top left corner, you'll see the King's Fund. So you can take a look at this website, and it does a fantastic job of explaining ICS. It's better than I can do today, but I'll give you as much of an intro as I can. So what we were thinking is organizations would often have perverse incentive to do something that benefited them but hurt another part of the system. An example would be a patient is ready for discharge from hospital. They're sitting in a bed. They need to go back home, but they need support when they get back home. The problem is another organization in social care will then have to take over that care. And it would benefit social care to delay, so they wouldn't have to spend that money. But by delaying, that means that that patient is stuck in that bed, which is bad for the patient. And also the hospital can't use that bed, so somebody else gets stuck in the system, not being able to get into the bed. Can you see that hospital gets affected? And eventually it can get so bad that an ambulance isn't able to offload a patient. These are the problems that you get if you don't have a system that is joined up. So we needed to move towards a more integrated way of doing things. Importantly, we were also moving towards primary care at scale. So the National Association of Primary Care, the NAPC, built a model called the primary care home. The primary care home was then turned into the primary care networks, PCNs, And PCNs are all about how do you deliver primary care to groups of people of 30,000 to 50,000 population size. These neighborhoods are the building blocks upon which we build all the organizations in that area together so that they can work together. So you can have multiple PCNs all working together for their neighborhoods. And then in that place, in that city, in that town, the hospital will work together with social care, the ambulance, the mental health, the primary care, the community care, so that we no longer are hurting each other as we try to do our jobs. We also try to make sure that the money would also make sense. So people would be able to find ways that may not benefit them financially, but would benefit the system to be paid. So that's what the ICS is all about. So you see at the very bottom of my screen, what are ICSs, why are ICSs needed, and then look at the fourth one, systems, places, and neighborhoods. There's lots of things we can discuss about what ICSs are doing. But the key is, if you are trying to protect one part of the system, and you're saying, look, I support primary care, eventually you will end up in a conversation with the ICS and how primary care touches other places. For example, can primary care send a patient to somewhere not as expensive as a hospital for a referral? Does that benefit the patient? Were they able to receive care closer to home? Are they able to go to hospital but not stay? Maybe it's a day case, an outpatient attendance. Those are the kind of things that are now starting to become more prevalent in the system. So if I was going to summarize, I would say that when you're looking at digital health or health tech in the UK, you're looking at a big focus on citizens. How do we empower people? How do we make sure there's no health inequalities? How do we make sure our staff are protected? How can we help them, augment them so they can do more? How do we bring joy to work? And also, how do we form more of a population and a place-based approach? So it's not about the different organizations, it's about who's in that place and how they work together. So if your technology supports those things, especially if it supports all of them, then you're going to start to find success in the UK. Lots of great examples I'm sure we can cover, but focus on citizens. Focus very much on making sure that staff, that clinical and non-clinical staff, are not given a greater burden by taking on your technology, and you are able to help things work closer together. Hospitals, community care, primary care, ambulance, mental health. Blur the lines, remove the distinctions. And one quick example in the time that I've got left, if you were to spend all of your time trying to sell one product, and you were trying to get someone to adopt it, that person is then going to have to use what good looks like framework, and they'd have to make sure it touches all of those 7 things. And if they can't make sure it touches those 7 things, your deployment will fail. And in fact, your procurement will fail, which is why everything you do should now start to be in line with what good looks like, to make it easy for people in the system to adopt. So I think I'm only 14.5 minutes in, but I'll stop there and hand back.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hsn, and great insights. Moving on, we will have Dr. Steven Lin, I believe, if we could get the right slides up. We have Steven Lin from the AHSN. He will give us a little bit more insight into their focus areas, and again, building on the theme on what are the key steps to take when preparing your business for the UK, and what is for example, the AHSN looking at in terms of tips and advice. So over to you, Steven.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. To say I'm Steven Lin, so I work with one of the academic health science network organisations. We're based in the northeast North Cumbria, and I'll just going to give you a little overview of what I'll cover today in this talk. So I'll describe a little bit about the AHSN network, and talk a little bit about some of the work that we support nationally, such as the new innovation service that's being developed at the moment. I'll talk a little bit about the innovation pathway as well, which is something that all AHSNs support, and I'll describe that in a little bit more detail later. I'll also touch upon some of the regulatory changes that are occurring within the UK that it probably would be good to be aware of and to think about if you're looking to enter the UK as a market. And as Hsn said, I'll cover a top-level overview of both the digital technology assessment criteria from through NHSX and also the NICE evidence standards framework for digital health technologies. So to kick off with, I'll just give you a very brief overview of the HSN network. So there are basically 15 regional HSNs that cover the whole of England. We were established back in 2013 by NHS England, and our primary aim was really to help support the spread of innovation at pace and scale across the health system. And you can see in this map, at the very top of England, that's where I'm based. That's North East Northumbria HSN, and all HSNs really are there to connect all of the key stakeholders across health innovation. So that's linking in academia, both the NHS innovators, local authorities, the third sector, policymakers, regulators, funders, investors, as well as international partners as well. And we have three core objectives, and those are to transform patient safety. So we have a number of patient safety collaboratives that the HSNs lead on behalf of NHS improvement. We also improve population health through work, again, commissioned through NHS England and NHS improvement. And our third objective is around generating economic growth within our regions. And this is probably my main core objective because of the team where I sit in. And that's a commission that we deliver on behalf of the Office for Life Sciences. So I just want to just quickly sort of talk to you now about the new NHS National Innovation Service, which the HSNs have been supporting over the last year or so, as this has been more than a year now, a couple of years at least. So this is going to be a new national front door. It will focus on providing information, and this is really to help innovators understand, first of all, where they think they are on the innovation pathway. It'll also help innovators to understand the NHS's needs through this demand signalling and any other unmet need that has been identified within the NHS. It will also encourage innovators to feed into our own pipeline. So the service will provide a degree of horizon scanning that will allow us to be able to identify appropriate innovation to address any of the NHS's needs that we currently have. It will provide support to innovators with information on regulatory requirements and how to go about building up their evidence base to allow them to be able to have their innovations successfully adopted and spread across the NHS. It also will help signpost innovators to relevant funding opportunities, and I'll describe a little bit later the various organisations that are involved in this innovation service and the type of support that they can provide. And obviously one of these will be around funding opportunities. It'll also help you to understand who's who within this very complex environment within the UK. So it'll give you that landscape review of all of these various organizations and all these various acronyms that you will hear about, but hopefully to bring that together in one space and to allow you to sort of get access to that and really help you understand the landscape and the market that you're looking to enter. It'll also, as I say, support innovators to help gain with that adoption and spread of innovation by understanding issues around, say, like procurement, reimbursement, and commercialization. Again, so you know that there are various organizations involved in the innovation service that will ensure and provide that help and support around that. And then also as well, the innovation service provides us with this marketplace to try and connect users with various support organizations. And this will help innovators connect with those most appropriate support organizations at the right time along that pathway journey. And also as well, just to finally just let you know that we currently have an online service called HealthTechconnect, which is currently supported by Nhs, and this will eventually subsume that service and provide that national portal into connecting with the various support organizations. So this slide's a little bit busy, but it just gives you an idea of the sort of the front end functionality that has been developed for the innovation service. There are a number of areas of where this will provide help and support, so around the things like the innovation pathway and helping to triage innovations and along that journey, and to ensure that that they have the appropriate evidence or data in place for them to be able to understand where they are on that journey and what they need to do next to be able to continue along that journey. We won't mention things like demand signaling as well, horizon scanning. It'll also provide information on regulatory requirements to really understand what the UK market, or what you need for the UK market, to ensure that you comply with all the relevant regulations and guidelines that's needed, especially for digital tech. Evidence and testing, the service will set out the support and the guidance that's available to help you understand what the requirements are and for all types of products. And so we will touch upon that in some of the slides later on, especially around digital technologies. Again, funding, it will provide a central catalogue of national funders and the schemes that they all offer as well. And it will also provide this interactive searchable infographic which will lay out the organisations involved in innovation, so it would be easy for you to be able to identify who you need to approach and speak to based on where you are along that innovation pathway. And finally, the adoption and spread functionality. Really, this is more around providing that information and tools and organisations that will support innovators in getting their products into the NHS and then spread across the NHS. So this has been, this service has been customised not only for digital, but for medicines, diagnostics, medtech, and sort of hybrid technologies as well. And its focus is for all innovators as well, not just companies or SMEs, but also as well large companies, and also as well for NHS innovators as well, where a lot of clinicians within the NHS are looking to develop their own innovations, and this again will provide that help and support in ensuring that they that their journey is streamlined as much as possible. So just quickly mention who's involved in this marketplace within the innovation service. As I mentioned, the HSN network is involved, and all 15 will provide support to innovators along that whole innovation journey. 3 of these AHSNs are involved in the initial triaging step, which is the needs assessment function. So that's ourselves, North East North Cumbria, colleagues at Wessex AHSN, and also as well at West Midlands AHSN. So we between 3 of us at the moment, we provide that initial needs assessment function to help signpost innovators to the most appropriate support based on where they are on that journey. And you can see some of the other organisations that are involved in this marketplace. So we have NICE, we have Department of International Trade, MHRA, Supply Chain, Specialised Commissioning, and also as well the NIHR, specifically their Office for Clinical Research Infrastructure. The Innovation Service is also linked in to the devolved administrations. So this includes the Scottish Health Technology Group, Health Technology Wales, and Life Science Hub Wales as well. And currently at the moment, NHS England are engaging with Northern Ireland to bring them into the Innovation Service. And we're also looking to bring in other organisations. So you've already heard from Hsn about, he's talked a little bit about NHSX. So we're keen to have NHSX in here as one of the support organisations to provide that targeted support for innovators, specifically obviously around digital tech and things like AI as well. And also as well, we're looking to bring in other organisations such as the NHS National Procurement Scotland, and also as well a Health Innovation Assessment Portal. So it's really just to expand this out to ensure that we have good representation from devolved administrations within the service. So that was basically the Innovation Service at the moment, and just to sort of let you know, it's currently still in a closed beta testing stage, so it's not something that is readily available publicly, but we are, as I say, we're going through a testing phase with real companies and real innovators at the moment, and I think the plan will be to ensure that this is ready to be released publicly, and that's probably going to happen certainly within the next month or couple of months or something like that. But as soon as that is ready to go, then I'm sure there will be a number of communications sent out to encourage people to use the service. So I just wanted now just to touch upon the innovation pathway. So this is a pathway which is being developed by the AHSNs, and this really covers that sort of end-to-end journey for innovation, all the way from discovery through to development and deployment of innovation. And each of these hexagons, within each of these hexagons is complex support structure, and the HSNs are really sort of probably one of the main partners to be able to help you sort of like navigate this and to help you understand where you are within each of these hexagons going through this particular journey. So the HSNs can provide you with information all the way through from, you know, identifying markets, you know, with IP, looking at identifying unmet needs, all the way through to setting up clinical trials to generate evidence, looking at real-world validation studies as well, providing help with health economics, you know, helping you to develop your business case for commercialization and procurement of your innovation, and again all the way through to scaling up adoption both at a regional level, but also as well a national level as well. And also as well, we do support international spread, so we do very much help work with UK-based companies looking to expand and export outside of the UK. So within the Northeast North Cumbria, we have a system that we're developing, which is called Omnia, which is it's basically our way to be able to use a digital platform to connect not only the AHSN, but the AHSN to all of our partner organisations across the region. So this Omnia system here at a national scale can also be reflected as the new NHS innovation service as well. So it's basically a digital platform to help understand where you are on that pathway and to therefore signpost you to the most appropriate partner for support and services. And what this allows us to do is to help provide you with that detailed support and help you to sort of navigate things like in finance and investment requirements that you might need going forward. Again, which helping you to sort of understand what the regional and national priorities are as well. Again, Hsn spoke to you about the integrated care systems. There are a number of these across England, and they will all have developed and published their regional priorities as well. So really ensuring that whatever you bring to the UK market is really going to help support those priorities. That is going to be key in ensuring success with supporting with adoption within an ICS. And as I sort of briefly mentioned, we do support UK companies looking to export, but we also provide a service, an international service as well, where we support overseas companies looking to import into the UK as well. And this is something that is an ongoing development within the HSNs, but the HSNs as a network have been working with overseas companies for quite a while now. We certainly provide a lot of support through the current HealthTechconnect portal to overseas companies who are looking to explore the UK market. We provide obviously a lot of help around that understanding as well. So the HSNs are well placed to provide that hand-holding to help you understand the UK as a market and to help you understand what you need to do, what your requirements are to ensure that you're able to enter into the UK. So just to sort of quickly summarise the type of support that the HSN network is able to provide to innovators, and whether they're companies or clinicians within the NHS. So we do a lot of work with our regional partners around identifying unmet need and developing challenges to go out to industry and other organisations to find support to develop those unmet need challenges and to identify those solutions that are going to address those unmet needs. The HSNs provide very effective signposting, especially across each of our regions as well. So we're well tied into our regional health and care systems, and we can help you with ensuring that you're able to speak to the right person at the right time and try and streamline that whole process for you. We support a number of real-world validations, and some HSNs will actually provide a little bit of financial help to set up some of these real-world validations, usually in collaboration with our NHS organisations, whether they be hospital trusts or PCNs. So we can certainly support you with a lot of work around that. We also help innovators and companies help to articulate what your value proposition is to the NHS. So this is really important that you fully understand what is the real benefit that your innovation is going to bring to the system, and what is that benefit, not only in terms of financial savings, suppose as well. What is the benefit to the patients as well, and how disruptive is that going to be? Is that going to require some changes within the way care is already delivered as well? So this articulating the value proposition is really quite an important step to really help with those ongoing conversations with commissioners and other NHS organisations within the UK. And as I've said, you know, once we are able to sort of get that foothold in with having innovations adopted, you know, we do provide ongoing support with that adoption and spread. And again, this is something that all HSNs can certainly help with you, based on wherever you're looking to have this adopted within the UK. So I just wanted to now quickly talk about some of the regulatory issues that are currently going on, and certainly since the UK came out of the EU. So the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, or the MHRA, they are the responsible organisation for regulating the UK medical devices market. And with the end of the transition period back on the 1st of January of this year, the MHRA has now published new guidance for innovators on how medical devices are going to be regulated going forward. And when I talk about medical devices here, so I'm basically meaning you know, all medical devices, including things like IVDs and active implantable medical devices as well. And this also includes things like standalone software and apps that all meet the definition of being a medical device as well. So obviously everyone you'll be aware of the CE marking. Now within the UK, there is now going to be a new UK conformity assessed mark, or UKCA mark, that will that you will need to be thinking about obtaining if you're looking to enter into the UK market. So there is guidance that's being provided by MHRA. So this now covers some of the different rules that now apply to Great Britain, Northern Ireland and the EU. So CE marked products will obviously continue to be recognised in Great Britain until 30th of June 2023. And conformity certificates which have been issued by EU recognised notified bodies will also continue to be valid for the for the Great Britain market until that date as well. Obviously, UK-based notified bodies are no longer recognised by the EU for issuing CE marks. However, though, the new UKCA mark, this will now be the new route to market for innovators. And this is already available for manufacturers who are now wishing to place a device on the market in Great Britain. Obviously, the UKCA mark is not recognised by the EU or the EEA or the Northern Ireland markets at the moment. You'll still need to have a CE mark to enter these specific markets. And at the moment, the UKCA mark can be used voluntarily from now until 30th of June 2023, but from 1st of July 23, you will need a UKCA mark before placing any product on the market in Great Britain. And then just to talk a little bit about the designation of UK approved bodies by the MHRA. So currently, all UK notified bodies have been designated automatically as approved bodies to be able to apply a UKCA mark to a product. However, though, these approved bodies are now unable to perform conformity assessments for CE marking, obviously except for those CE marks which are used within the Northern Ireland mark. And then just a little bit about product registration as well with the MHRA. So from 1st of January this year, all medical devices that are placed on the market within Great Britain now need to be registered with the MHRA, and manufacturers of Class 1 devices must still register their devices with MHRA as they currently do now. However, manufacturers outside of the UK need to now appoint a single UK responsible person if they are to place a device on the market. So again, there is a lot of information on the MHRA website around doing that, and I've got links at the end of this slide deck, which will hopefully help to point you in the right direction if you'll need more information around that. And also as well, once your product's on the market, manufacturers now need to implement post-market surveillance systems to monitor ongoing safety and efficacy of these products as well. And if you want any information or advice from the MHRA have a dedicated innovation office, and this is basically a single point of access for free and confidential regulatory information, advice and guidance. And again, I've got a link to that office at the end of this slide deck. So just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of the digital frameworks that have now been developed, certainly in England, and as Hsn earlier said earlier, NHSX have developed their digital technology assessment criteria, or DTAC. This is a new national baseline criteria for all digital health technologies entering the NHS and social care. Again, I think Hsn touched upon this, but this DTAC will be used by healthcare providers to assess companies and their products at the point of procurement, and they will use DTAC as a part of their due diligence process to ensure that any new digital technologies meet the minimum baseline standards for entry into the NHS and social care. And the DTAC is really quite detailed in outlining what is expected for entry into the NHS and social care. So there is a lot of information on the NHSX website. Again, there's a link at the end of this that guides you through that whole process in helping you to obtain DTAC approval, which at the moment is not compulsory or mandatory, sorry, but I think going forward, this is something that any manufacturers of digital health technologies are going to have to be able to evidence if they're looking to have their products procured by the NHS. And then the other framework I just wanted to quickly touch upon for digital health technologies is the NICE Evidence Standards Framework. And whereas the DTAC from NHSX is really focusing around patient safety and privacy issues, the NICE Evidence Standards Framework is a set of standards to ensure that these technologies are also clinically effective and also as well provide economic value to the NHS and social care. So again, these are being developed for innovators and commissioners to try and understand what good levels of evidence for digital health technologies look like. And currently, these have been digital health technologies have been classified into one of three evidence tiers, which is completely based on risk at the moment. So we have tier A, B, and C. So obviously, tier A is are the ones with the lowest base risk, and these are primarily technologies that have more of a system impact. You know, they don't provide any measurable patient outcomes, and they're really more service support type technologies, all the way through to tier 3, which are those technologies which are primarily direct interventions. So they're providing either a diagnosis, a treatment, or management of patients either within an NHS setting or at home as well. So I think my next slide, I think, just provides you a few, these are just a few examples of the different tiers for those types of technology. So you can see at the bottom there, the tier A, those low risk technologies are the ones providing more around system impact. So it's more around sort of system services, all the way through to sort of tier C, which are more around the interventions, where they're providing information or support around behavior changes or patients self-managing their conditions or treatments, as well as monitoring their conditions as well, or providing specific information on diagnoses. So as I say, I'm just wanting to sort of sum up now. These are just some information and links that you might find helpful. So for the MHRA, they have a very generic email address, but also as well, they also have an email address specifically if you're wanting information around devices. And then there's also links there to complying with the new legal regulations, and also as well information on the new UK CA mark and those bodies that are able to provide those assessments. And obviously there are other links here just to help you direct you to the information around things like DTAC and the NICE and the standards framework. And also as well, that link at the bottom is the link to the Health Research Authority as well. So if you're looking to conduct clinical trials in the UK, there's a lot of information here to help navigate you through that process as well, around setting up clinical trials certainly within England. So I think with that, if you're interested in wanting to follow up, I think there's my email address and there's our website, and I'll be more than happy to help answer any questions either now or offline later. But I hope that's been useful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steven, and great and very detailed information pack right there. And just to kind of reassure everyone that we will follow up with all the necessary details of the content that you are learning today. So don't worry too much about all the information. We will make sure that you have it afterwards. There will be a Q&A at the end. But lastly, we have one more segment, and that is from Richard Abrahams from PwC. And to kind of round this content up, we want to talk a little bit about access to finance. So with that, like I said, we do have a Q&A session after Richard's speak, but so keep your questions to that. And over to you, Richard. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And apologies in advance. If you can tell from my voice, got a little bit of a cold, so I started losing it. So hopefully you can all hear me and understand me clearly. But nothing contagious through the screen, thankfully, after the last 18 months or so. So just as a quick introduction, so Richard Abrahams, I lead the growth side. So I at PwC Raise Ventures. So I've spent the last 4 years building up a team which supports companies raising minority equity funding. So that's funding for people like venture capital funds, family offices, corporate ventures, etc. And I've just included my QR code, which is my LinkedIn account, if anyone wanted to follow up afterwards. So just as a quick introduction to what my team does. So we support, as mentioned, companies raising funds, so Series A and Series B. So we have a cohort program, which is basically our version of Y Combinator, which brings in kind of VCs, companies who have raised funding, and we go through everything around investor readiness, and then introductions to funds, both in the UK and Europe, and then support through the back end. And then for fundraisers of 5 million plus, it's more of a one-to-one advisory service, and I lead the 5 to 10 million fundraisers. We've, as mentioned, we've been doing it for about the last 4 years, and whilst COVID's been a fun time, over the last 18 months, we've supported with over 20 fundraisers, with over 100 million plus raised by our clients, and that's over the last 4 years, kind of from with companies from over 20 countries, and we've actually run cohorts across Europe, so both in London and Berlin, which is quite exciting. So that was a quick whistle tour about me and about us, but actually what would be more interesting is diving into what's actually happening in the venture ecosystem and what it means for you and for the health tech space. So in terms of thinking about the UK and London itself, you can see that London is really leading the way in the European kind of funding ecosystem. To us, it's the UK, France, and Germany where kind of the majority of the capital is being invested. The UK or London in itself has done more than twice as many deals as any other European city. And you can say, I know it's not quite the UK, but Dublin there is also in the top 10 cities as well. But London really is where a lot of the action is in the European venture ecosystem. And over the past few years, we've seen it growing and growing. And this is broken down into different fund sizes, but you can see that since the beginning of 2019, despite a little bit of a lull in 2020, which was understandable due to COVID, so in Q2 and Q3, a lot of venture investors and minority investors looked at their portfolio and consolidated rather than doing any new investments. There's been a big growth since then, particularly in 2021. And despite the fact that there's actually less deals, there's more money going into exciting growth companies. So you can see that the last 3 quarters have been significantly bigger than any quarter before, with kind of nearly or over 18 billion just in the UK being invested in companies. I think in 2020 it was more like 12 or 13 billion. So we've got a quarter more, and we've already smashed through kind of all the records, which is really exciting for any kind of growth company or tech company that's coming through. The other thing you can just see is that there's only 968 funding rounds versus more in previous quarters, which means that actually the amount that companies are raising is getting larger, not particularly due to the companies getting later stage, but just because there's a lot of dry powder in the market. So they're looking for great companies, and more money is being deployed. And what we're seeing is actually that when we're going out to market for 5 or 6 million, funds are sometimes coming back saying, what could you do with 7 or 8, which is something we haven't seen before. And then with regards to the health tech space, we're seeing a lot of growth in that as well. And this is a global funding rather than UK, but you can see that health tech is a really hot space at the moment. We've got nearly as much funding in 2021 in the first half of the year as there was in the whole of 2020, and significantly more than both 2018 and 2019. The records being smashed everywhere, which is only great for exciting companies that are coming through. Again, the other thing you can see is probably on par-ish in terms of the run rate of number of companies doing fundraisers. There's around 400 in the first half, which you doubled it for both halves of the year, get up to around the 800 mark, which is in line with over the last 3 years, but significantly more is going in on average into companies, which again is great to see how you can use those funds if you're looking to raise. So I think most importantly, and what we wanted to cover off today is actually what types of funding can you access, and I guess the way that I looked at it was thinking about what you could access in the UK, which you might not be able to access elsewhere. So the way that I split it out in my mind is there's 5 different types of funding. So you've got your venture capital funding, which people you have in the Nordics, you have them in the UK, you have them everywhere. But you've got people like your Boulderton or Axel, Atomico, and obviously there's quite a few strong Nordic funds. But the expectation is that you're going to be disrupting $1 billion+ markets, and you can grow and become a really a market leading company. And they're looking for massive kind of 10x plus returns to return their fund. You've then got family offices, which is effectively just wealthy families. So, you know, people who have made their money previously, or family dynasties effectively, who are now investing in smaller and growth opportunities rather than sticking it into property or on the stock market. Family offices completely vary across the whole spectrum. So you have some families who say, well, we made our money in manufacturing, therefore we're going to invest in things around manufacturing. We've got some families who effectively act like a venture capital fund. So one that has big connections to the Nordics is SMEs Big Capital. They are very professionalized, and think about it like any other tech VC would. Again, returns profile can completely vary because they might have more altruistic aims, but they may also just have purely financial aims. Third one you've got is corporate venture capital. So that is effectively the venture capital aims of big corporates. So people like Google Ventures or Intel Capital, Hearst Ventures, etc. And they have completely different motivations. So some of them might be completely financial. Others might be completely strategic and thinking about how can we make sure that our company is not disrupted. They may not have an aim for kind of significant returns, but actually thinking about things more strategically, but completely differs across the spectrum. So those three I'll put in one bucket because you can get them in the UK, you can also get them in the Nordics or anywhere else. Now these next two buckets, so you've got Vct and Eis funds, and you've got grant funding, and those are the two I'm going to dig into a little bit today because they are much more UK centric, which might be interesting. Hopefully as you come over to the UK and try and grow in this market as well. So you may not have heard of Vct and Eis funds, but that stands for Venture Capital Trust and Enterprise Investment Scheme. And they're similar to venture capital funds, but actually want slightly lower returns, and it's due to their investors, their limited partners who invest in their fund. They're more tax efficient funds, and the people who invest in the fund get tax incentives to do so. Come to that in a second. And then grant funding, which is, as you probably know, and there probably is lots of grant funding in the Nordics, but it's non-dilutive funding, given for like a strategic reason for you to go and dig into a certain problem or focus. The Vct and Eis funds. So as you can see, like they are hugely impactful to the UK space. And to be perfectly honest, this is why I think the UK has run ahead of the rest of the European ecosystem, because there's these tax incentives for individuals, for professionals, and for high net worths to invest in early stage companies, which obviously breeds innovation. You can see in VCTs, since launch, which I think is around 15-20 years ago, there's been more than £8 billion invested through VCTs. And with EIS and SEIS, which is Small Enterprise Investment Scheme, there's been, I think it's more than £24 billion now into 33,000 companies. And the reason for that is basically anyone who invests in these schemes or in companies that have EIS or SEIS status get a 30% tax break on what they invest. So you can imagine for anyone who's got some spare money from, you know, from their work or whatever else it might be, is investing in these companies both to get a return, but they get an immediate tax break. So there's a massive incentive. So actually, if you're a company who comes to the UK and wants high net worth investment, not having EIS status makes it a lot more difficult to get funding. So to give a bit more view on it, and because this is where it becomes interesting, is that you don't actually necessarily need to be a UK company to get EIS or VCT status. So as you can see at the top of the VCT one, the VCTs are investment companies who are actually listed on a European market, not necessarily the UK market. But the big thing is they invest in companies who have a permanent establishment in the UK. That doesn't necessarily that it's the headquarters in the UK. It just means that they have an office in the UK, and that can be in a WeWork as an example. and also someone who is a decision maker in the UK. So if you have your someone on your C-suite, so CFO or COO, CEO, who can make decisions at a top co level, so at a business level, you can most likely gain access to Vct or EIS funding. And there are a few good advisors around this who can support with this. PwC would actually be one of them, so happy to introduce there. There are a couple of others in the market who know all of the nuances around these funding regulations and can support with that side of things. But it makes a big difference. And as you can see in the EIS columns, you can get up to £5 million of investment from EIS or VCT money in a year, and up to 10 million over the lifetime of your company. And then if you're something called a knowledge intensive company, which is basically a tech company, those numbers double. So these funds or these funding partners can put in quite a significant amount of money to keep things growing, and the whole base for it is to grow out the UK tech ecosystem. I've just put a few examples of the EIS and VCT funds on screen, and some of them you probably would have heard of if you follow kind of any of the tech ecosystem in the health tech or others. So you've got people who are quite well known, so people like Octopus, Albion, Guinness, etc. So these are really well known. And Octopus in particular, Albion, Mercia, and Gresham definitely all have particular health tech focuses when they look at companies. They have all of health tech leads and streams. The other thing is grant funding. So in the UK, the grant funding is funded by the UK Research and Innovation. And so the money is actually split into 9 different streams or 9 different councils. I won't go into all 9, but the 3 most relevant ones that I think for you that I picked out are the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council, the Medical Research Council, and Innovate UK. And actually they all have hundreds of millions to invest every single year, billions across all 9 of them. As you can see, in 2020, there's a combined budget for those 3 councils of £2.5 billion to invest, which is quite exciting. And again, similar to EIS and VCT schemes, their whole thing is driving innovation and building out tech and supporting UK ecosystem and industry. So it's not necessarily about UK money for UK companies or whatever it might be. It's actually thinking about how do we maintain the UK as a leading presence. And I imagine this is ever more prevalent in a post-Brexit world, where companies may be less incentivized for one reason or another to come over to the UK. So as mentioned, this is not necessarily for UK headquartered companies, but again, it will be where you probably need to have a UK presence or work with a UK company whilst looking or researching into something. The types of grants that come through are changing on a very frequent basis, and they're constantly being renewed. So going on the either the Innovate UK or any of the other websites would be very useful to have a look at what's going on at that time. But basically what I've done is I have picked out a couple of examples that were on the website over the last couple of days, which might be interesting. And so the first one is around vaccines for epidemic diseases, which is obviously particularly relevant right now, given how the world has been over the last couple of years. But thinking about, so there's organisations that can apply for up to £10 million to enhance clinical and regulatory preparedness of vaccines. Now, what it doesn't say there is UK organisations can apply. So there is an opportunity for companies from outside the UK who want to work in the UK or gain some of this grant funding to apply and digging into it from that side. The second one is the Healthy Aging Challenge for companies to support healthy aging, which is obviously right in the health tech sweet spot. And it says UK registered businesses, but it's not UK headquartered businesses. So again, companies who come over, put a business in the UK and want to develop employment in the UK and drive innovation in the UK can apply for a grant and share of up to nearly £15 million, which is obviously a significant amount of money. So again, a really interesting avenue for any health tech who wants to kind of grow in this space, in this market, and obviously might get support from the government as well, which is always helpful. So I know that was a real whistle-stop tour in the kind of the last 20 minutes or so, but I would be happy to take any questions or discuss any further with anyone off the call. And basically, I've also just put another QR code just in terms of if you wanted a further conversation with me or my team about anything about funding, whether it's obviously the Vct Eis landscape, grant funding, etc. But happy to have that further conversation, hopefully when my voice is in better shape as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Richard, and great content. And hopefully some of the companies here are already thinking that some of these funds and grant applications would be relevant immediately. If we have Hsn still on the line, we'd just like now to run a short Q&A if anyone has some interesting questions that they'd like to propose. We have about 15 minutes to go to a Q&A now, so over to you, Hsn.
Thank you so much. And I thought those presentations were exceptional. From my perspective, when I'm supporting companies coming into the UK, that's exactly the right kind of information that they need. So I'm going to ask for the participants, if you have questions, please put them into the chat. Give us an indication of what you'd like to ask. While I wait for that, I'm going to quickly ask a couple of questions myself. First to Steven. Steven, there is a question about where should a service provider start with the AHSNs? What's the right contact point? Steven, are you with us?
Yes, hi. So certainly I think that probably at the moment a good way of getting contact into the HSN network is probably through Healthtechconnect, which is, as I say, this is the online portal and database for all innovators to be able to get access, not only to the HSN network, but all organizations. But this is where the new innovation service will eventually take over in the coming months as well. And again, that's probably going to be the quickest way to enter at the national level and ensure that the most appropriate HSNs are able to support innovators.
Great, thank you so much. Now, I think there's some questions in the Q&A I'm going to go to. I'm going to just quickly check something with Richard before we go, if that's all right. So Richard, when companies are coming to the UK, a lot of them might underestimate the kind of runway they need. They don't know how long they need to be waiting before they get a deal. And I appreciate, how long is a piece of string? That's not easy to work out. What would your advice be to companies who might underestimate their runway before they get to sale?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Sam. We always say when thinking about, well, there's a couple of different ways of thinking about it. One is with regards to funding, and then one is with regards to any international expansion. And so when you're thinking about the access to funding side of things, we always say give yourselves at least 6 to 9 months runway, just because the whole process of getting funding takes that amount of time, and you want to make sure you don't start getting to the last bits of your runway, and then obviously you lose leverage that you may have had previously or earlier in a deal process. With regards to just expansion and kind of settling into a country and getting known, depends on your routes to market. It's all about distribution and proof points and what you've done in, obviously, let's say your home country and all that side of things. But again, it's probably around the same amount of runway. And don't overestimate if you're trying to, and I know NHSX and things like that are incredibly useful, but don't underestimate how long it could take to sell into some of these organizations.
Thank you so much. So I can see a question in the chat. Ingmar Weinberg, the NHS has accelerator sites to tackle waiting lists and backlog. Where are these sites and how to get in contact with them? We're at zynego.com. They shorten waiting times in Sweden, so maybe we can also help the NHS. I think that is very much a Steven question.
Yes, there are various accelerator sites. We Around digital health, we do run a digital health accelerator which covers the 4 northern AHSN regions. So that's ourselves, Northwest Coast, Manchester, and Yorkshire and Humber as well. Probably certainly the accelerator sites that the HSN are involved in, we do have an overarching HSN Network website that has a lot of information on there around some of these various initiatives that we currently run. Also as well, I believe NHSX will also provide information around some of the accelerators that they fund across the country. Certainly in our region, we have a number of digital programs ongoing that NHSX are currently supporting as well. So yeah, I'll certainly check out the AHSN main national website, and also as well NHSX.
Thank you so much. And the question mentioned waiting lists and the elective backlog. That's a real big issue, right, Steven?
Yes, definitely. The whole issue of elective recovery is now coming to the fore. So anything that's going to help address that would certainly have would be a lot of interest in looking at any products or innovations around support to elective recovery.
Excellent. So the next question I think is yours too. Renee Aslander, is there a defined process to engage in a pilot with various levels of the NHS in order to provide UK-based evidence of value or solution? Hope that question makes sense, Stephen.
I wouldn't say that there is a systematic way of setting up pilots at a national level. I think that's probably, again, probably more of a conversation to have with individual AHSNs, but they certainly would be able to help with navigating those local organisations who are probably more willing to be able to support a pilot again. So yeah, I think the short answer is there isn't a central contact point or site you can go to where you can identify where you can run a pilot. I think that's probably more a specific question to have with the HSN networks to help support identifying those potential sites.
And of course, Stephen, the HSN network does a great job of making sure innovation is diffused, but there'll be organizations that are represented by HSN, so the hospitals, as an example, or the primary care. Would you say that an innovator could go direct, go try and find a key opinion leader, perhaps a surgeon if they're interested in that area, or a family doctor, and say to them, look, we'd love to do a pilot with you? Does going direct work?
Yes, certainly. If they've got those contacts, then yeah, of course, yeah, they can reach out to those and have those conversations. But if they're coming to a region or a part of the country where they're unfamiliar, then again, just blowing the trumpet for the HSN, we are there to be able to help with that signposting. So if they're looking for a clinician or a health professional in a specific area or with specific expertise, we can help with that signposting and helping them to make those contacts a lot more quickly and efficiently.
Thank you. So I'm waiting for any more questions in the chat. While we do, I'm just going to ask Richard a question. Stephen just used the phrase signposting, and that got me thinking about you. I think your presentation was fantastic because it showed the real spread of what's out there. I think there's a real interest in companies not looking for big raises early on so that they can establish themselves, work out what their trajectory could be, and then going for a bigger raise. So perhaps they're looking at VCT, EIS early. Have I got that right? Is that the kind of thing you're seeing a lot of companies do?
Yeah, I think again it completely is relevant to the companies in question. So Again, I'd suggest raising enough that gives you 18 to 24 months of runway, just because the process takes 6 to 9 months. So what you don't want to do is raise enough for 12 months and then be thinking, great, I need to get back on the road again before you've proven anything further. There's that side of things. But a big thing in the UK and actually the European venture ecosystem, it's all about, as you said, signposting and those proof points. So it's not enough to say, I've got an idea with a pitch deck. If you have your product, you started selling into organizations, you started generating revenue, and in particular recurring revenues, that's when you can start going out for those bigger funding rounds. But obviously it depends what your strategic priorities are as a business, and thinking about things like dilution, what you would do with the money, and obviously you've then got a responsibility to use those funds to grow and return those funds and everything that comes along with funding. So lots to think about, and probably a longer conversation than one we've got now.
I appreciate, Richard. The question's a little bit unfair because there's so many other variables, but in general, make sure that you prove your value and then get the money to ramp it up and scale. So thank you so much for that. And one last question for you, Richard. From your perspective, what's really exciting the market? What kind of tech are you seeing and thinking, oh, there's enough of that now? Please, no more of those. We need a bit more of this. Any hints of what you're seeing?
Yeah, so I'm actually currently working with a few health tech companies. One in the mental health space, which is obviously a very hot space at the moment. Again, really exacerbated by the last couple of years with COVID and everyone staying at home. Another one in the at-home diagnostic space. So kind of democratizing access to diagnostics and that accessibility piece, which is really interesting. And we've seen Let's Get Checked as an example in the US, which has recently become a unicorn. So that's obviously a space that's going to be growing in Europe. And the other one I'm working with currently is in the digital health space. So accreditation of digital health apps. And so actually those platform technologies behind digital health are really interesting. Now, obviously, if you can get the scale and growth of someone like a Babylon, then that's obviously interesting. But actually, things around the digital health space are growing so quickly. It's what's actually underpinning that, what's supporting that. And a lot of the platform technologies, I think, will be the ones that are really interesting and will grow really quickly in the future.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think that the next two questions are both for Steven, and then I'm going to hand back to Anna. So, Steven, the two questions that have come in: what area of medical device software is in the highest demand in the UK at the moment? And finally, once evidence is established for a solution, what's the process to make it available to the larger NHS community? Over to you, Steven, on those two.
Right, okay. So, certainly there's been a huge requirement with COVID and the pandemic, and ensuring that we had solutions to deal with remote consultations and remote monitoring, and they're still ongoing. I think one of the certainly big areas is around how we can monitor patients more closely within the home setting, and to try and avoid footfall into secondary care. So anything that's going to ensure that we're able to monitor and treat patients within the community and nearer to home is certainly of interest to us at the moment, just because of the capacity that's being reached certainly within secondary care. And sorry, right, the second question was around.
So the second is about once evidence is established, what's the process to make it available to the larger NHS community? And I thought, that is the goal of the AHSNs. I thought I'd do that one as a sign off.
So the AHSNs can as I mentioned in the presentation, we can provide a lot of help and support around developing that value proposition to help the NHS really understand what the benefits are of that product or that innovation as well. We work with a number of companies as well around developing their business case for that local adoption piece as well. So again, you know, the HSN networks do have expertise across the entire network to help with supporting those stages of adoption and developing that value proposition that is really going to be the key to supporting those conversations that companies would need to have with organizations to help with supporting adoption. So yeah, again, you know, the HSNs are very, very happy to sort of provide that support with developing those key pieces of evidence that companies will require.
Okay, thank you so much. I answered one question in the chat from Ingmar. Is it necessary to get DTAC before contacting potential key persons right now? I said it's certainly nice to have, it's not mandatory yet, but don't let that stop you getting in contact with people in the NHS. And at that note, I will hand back to Anna and say thank you to the panelists for the Q&A.
Excellent, thank you, Hsn. And yes, thank you to all our speakers today. And thank you to everyone listening in. As I mentioned, this is the first of 3 parts in this event series. This is building on the work that we did also back in March. So we will send around some information again to our event page and to previous content that we have shared with you. We've now covered a lot of information about what are the key steps to take when preparing your go-to-market strategy and what you should be aware of. Going forward, we want to be a bit more interactive. As I mentioned, the second event will be a workshop event hosted end of November, and to all of registrations will receive an email, a bit more information about this today. And I mentioned the third part will be a physical event in London. So we are hoping to get as many as possible to join us for that. As I said, more details to come and more information in an email to you later today. But for now, I want to say thank you and let's speak soon. Bye, everyone.